Hello, this is Ed Cawthorn, and this is the second video for week 2, and it's how I go about doing a program. So this is video 2. You know, somebody said I lose continuity when I don't put a entry page like that in there. So I apologize if you've lost continuity on this. But I'm new at this. I have no other excuse. I am not a filmmaker by any means. So let's get out of here. And let's go look at the code we were just looking at. The code we were just looking at is this code. Now, if you take a look at this code, this is not particularly ugly code. It's not beautiful code. I'll see if I can increase the font a little bit so that we can see something maybe a little bit better, just to provide view. Now it doesn't want to do that. Well, apparently I can't increase the font right off the format. Apparently I can't increase the font right off the top of my head, which kind of stinks. But let's go to Configure IDE, see if that does it. Font size. Let's see if we can make it 13 and apply it. Let's say OK. Ooh, that did increase the size a little bit. So you can. I'm used to working in my environment, so sometimes I'm not sensitive to other people's environment. We have to keep that in mind when we're doing this, and if you have any suggestions, just send them in. I'm more than willing to sit down and take them into advisement. Now, this is just a utilities file that I have for this particular program I'm working at. This is not Pythonic at all. I've asked you to look at the Python structure style sheet in one of the readings. I just want you to go over it a little bit. We're going to start stressing out Pythonic code styling and that sort of thing after the spring break. Because if you're going to write Python, you ought to write it in a style and a fashion that people are used to seeing it in. I've also added to the readings this week the print formatting functions and, well, just a whole bunch of different things that I'm hoping are going to blend you into more Pythonic code writing, because by the end of this semester, I want us to have the ability to go out there and scrape things from the web. And in scraping things from the web, that means that we have to be able to write things in an organized fashion so that not only other people can understand it, we can understand it come 6-8 months. But the key to this particular file is this. Ooh. The reason I want this particular utility is this. And that's the only reason. This particular utility does something rather unique. It reads a file into a list and removes the carriage return line feed. This is my wording. The reason I word it that way is so that I know exactly what the Python procedure is going to do when I go to implement it. It may seem a little bit long, but it's easier to be explicit than it is to be questionable. There is no ambiguity there. That reads a file into a list and removes the carriage return line feed. Whenever you read a file in through Python, in Python into a list, it comes with a carriage return line feed. That's a delimiter on all files. That might be text files, might be binary files, doesn't matter. Any file you read in is going to have a carriage return line feed. I want to remove that carriage return line feed so that my list, when I print it out, is going to look beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. To remove the carriage return line feed, I have made a sub program. This is a sub program. Sub procedure. This procedure cannot be called from any place else but inside of the... Oh, I screwed that one up too. Let me unscrew that one up. Let's go out and redraw lines. This is a sub procedure. This procedure right here is a subordinate procedure that is only used in this particular function. That means that it's there. That's what one of the beauties behind Python. I can have 50 of those associated with this utility function that's going to work for me. This is my open file routine, and this is what I want to do. I want to read, and I'm going to read it into a list, and then I'm going to send that list up here and return the list down here so that I've got all my carriage return line feeds pulled out. Sorry if I'm screwing this up with the line drawing. I'm not really sure. Let me know what you think. If the line drawing's not explicit enough, if it's too much, let me know. One of the things I came up with over the week in my reading was that students don't really understand what scope is. Scope is this method right here. Remove carriage return has this for scope. This is scope. This falls subordinate to this. This is your method signature, and this is your scope. The scope of this, to read the file in, the entire scope is this. Scope is defined by your colon at the end. Once you hit the colon at the end, the IDE automatically spaces you in, thus recognizing your scope. That's a good thing and a good reason to have an IDE. If you don't, you try it. If you ever try doing this in a text editor, you will find it to be extremely difficult. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save a program type program PY. I don't know why I'm going to call it program PY. It just sounds like a good name for me right now. And I'm going to save this as program PY in this file. Then I'm going to go look at the folder and make sure it's there. There it is, program PY file. So I'm comfortable with that. Then I'm going to open up my utilities. I'm going to go back to my IDE, and I'm going to open my program PY file. This is kind of, as I said, an elongated way of doing things, but unfortunately the way the college has it set up and with the security associated with it, this is the only way that works. So I'm going to change this from utilities because I'm in programs PY. Program. And the whole purpose of this program is to read in a CSV file and dump it out to a screen. That's all I'm going to do. So I'm going to get rid of all this because I don't need this anymore. I might not get rid of all of it. I'm going to comment something out. I'm going to comment out this. I take an awful lot of code that I've written before and I reuse it. And I found over the years that if I do this, it promotes my coding a whole lot faster. It makes me a whole lot more productive, and I don't tend to screw up so much. Once I develop something, I keep using it over and over and over again, and it's always there. That's part of the reason I have a utilities file, even though this utilities file is cut down smaller than my normal utilities file. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to read in a file. I'm going to read file. I'm going to do the list equals. I'm going to import my utilities first. Notice, as I type, I think of things. A lot of times I catch my mistakes. You'll find yourself doing the same thing. Don't worry about it if the world doesn't turn blue. The sky doesn't turn blue at first look. It will. And the file that I want to move in is teams.csv. Now you have to put the exact name out there. Python is very, very sensitive when it comes to capitalization. It will kick back on you and you'll sit there and you'll look, well, gee, I spelled teams right, but I spelled it with all lowercase letters. All right, so let's just do a real quick for I in teams in the list. Print I. And we'll run this and we'll see if it works. Aha! I've got an error. This is not defined right here. All right, that means more than anything else, I made a spelling error. But now I didn't. I forgot to put the U in front of it. So let's try it again. See? My menu drops down. Let's run it again. And that's a reflection of my my .csv file. Now that's fine, but now we have to figure out what we're going to do with this .csv file. And when it's done running, I will show you what we're going to do with it. That's going to save us a whole lot of misery. We've already got this CSV file into a list. We call it the list. I use a term like the list because it's relatively generic and it doesn't hurt anything. Keep that in mind. Just a thought. Now I'm going to close my feedback line, and I'm going to go out here, and I'm going to end this right now before we do any further programming. I'm going to put a line over this. Just say reflex out the list, just to make sure I know that what it's doing, so that I can be sure. I'm going to eventually comment that out when I go to clean this up because I don't want to reflect it out every time. So we'll save this. We'll